Chapter 32. How King Lusart ordained that his cortes be held in London. As it had pleased God to make Lusart, of a prince who had no heritage, king of Great Britain, and to give him the greatest glory and prosperity that man could wish, so now, lest his heart should wax proud and be corrupt, his peace was to be disturbed. He sent forth his summons to hold the court on the 5th day at London, a city which was then like an eagle above all the rest of Christendom, that they might take order for the advancement of chivalry. But there, where he thought all the world would yield him obeisance, began the first change of fortune, and his kingdom and person were put in danger of utter ruin. King Lusart, with all his chivalry, departed from Windsor to the court, and the queen with her dames and damsels. The assembly was wonderfully great, young knights costly armed and adorned, and infantas, who were the king's daughters, and damsels of high degree, for whom their lovers were about to make pastimes and pleasure. That they might not lodge in the city, the king ordered pavilions to be pitched in the plain by the brooks and fountains that abound in that land. Here led they the happiest life that could be imagined. To this court there came a great lord, more noble in estate and rank than in dignity of virtue, Barsinian, lord of San Suena, not that he was vassal or friend to King Lusart, nor even known to him, but for this cause. He being in his own land, Archelaus the enchanter came to him and said, Lord Barsanian, if you like it, I will so contrive that with a little difficulty or labor you shall become king of Great Britain. Barsanian answered, I should gladly undergo any labor or difficulty for such a reward. Promise me to make me chief of your household for life, and the thing shall be done. That I will right willingly, but how shall it be done? In this manner, quoth Archelaus, go you with a good company of knights to the first court? That King Lusart shall hold. I will contrive to carry away the king prisoner, so that no person shall be able to succor him, and at the same time I will give you his daughter Orianda to wife. In 5 days' time I will send Lusart's head to London. Then do you, having the heiress to the throne in your power, take the occasion and seize the crown. With this design came Barsinian to the court, where he was honorably entertained, and albeit his heart failed him, and he almost repented of the enterprise, seeing the great power of knighthood that was with Lusart, yet determined he to abide the end. But Lusart, nothing misdoubting him, to do him the great honor, gave him his own palace, and pitched tents for himself, for the queen in the fields, and consulted with him upon the business of the court, how he might best advance chivalry. To this effect, the next day was appointed for council. When morning came, the king clad himself in royal robes befitting the solemnity, and sent for the crown, which the old knight had left him, and desired the queen to attire herself in the mantle. She opened the coffer wherein they were laid, with a key which she always kept herself, and found nothing therein, whereat she was greatly amazed, and crossed herself, and sent to inform the king. Albeit he was much troubled, dissembled his chagrin, and going to the queen, took her apart, and said, How, madam, have you kept so ill a thing of such value? Sir, she replied, I know not what to say. The coffer was locked, and the key, which I have never trusted from me, in my own possession. But I dreamt last night that a damsel came and asked me to show her the coffer, which in my sleep I did. And she demanded the key, and I gave it to her. And she opened the coffer, and took out the crown and mantle, then fastened it again, and replaced the key. And she clad herself in the mantle, and put on the crown, which so well became her that I had great delight in looking at her. And she said to me, He and she whose these shall be before 5 days' end shall reign in the realm of the mighty one who now labors to defend it, and to conquer the lands of others. I asked her of whom she spake. She answered, You will know at that time. Then she vanished, taking with her the crown and mantle. But I know not whether this happened to me in a dream or in very deed. At this the king marveled greatly, and charged her that she should tell no one. Then, leaving that tent, they both went to the other, accompanied by so many knights and dames and damsels that all who saw them wondered. The king seated himself upon a rich seat, and the queen sat up on another somewhat below him, both of which were placed upon carpets of cloth of gold. The knights ranged themselves on the king's side, and the ladies on the side of the queen. The 4 knights whom the king most esteemed were nearest him: Amadis, Galer, Galvanes, and Argaves. At his back was King Arban of the north of Wales, armed at all points, and holding a drawn sword, and with him were 200 knights. In this order, all being silent, there stood up a lady, exceedingly fair and richly garmented, and there arose with her at the same time 12 dames and damsels, attired with like bravery and the same adornments. For this custom had the ladies and chiefs of high degree to take with them to such solemnities their followers apparelled like their own proper persons. This lady with this attendant stood up before the king and queen, and addressing Lusart, she said, "Sire, hear me. I have claim against this knight," stretching forth her hand towards Amadis. She continued and related how Anigrote of Estravaus had sought her love, and why he kept the Vale of Pines, and how Amadis, having forced the pass, had promised to procure for him his mistress's favor. Whereof, quoth she, when I attained knowledge, I withdrew myself to my castle, where I kept such a strong guard and custom, and it was thought that no strange knight could enter. Nevertheless, this knight entered, who was at your feet, pointing to Amadis, who she knew not. He afterwards of his good will promised to make Amadis revoke his word to Anigrote. But then there chanced a combat between him and mine uncle Garsinan, and all eyes were fixed upon Garsinan, while she related how the battle had been, marveling that he should have dared to do battle with Amadis. "And here, sir," said she, "am I come to claim his promise, and odd discharge my own." When she had ended, Amadis rose and said, "What the lady has said is true, and I promise to make Amadis revoke his word to Anigrote. Let her also grant the covenanted boon." Thereat, in great joy, she exclaimed, "Ask what you will. What I demand is," quoth he, "that you marry Anigrote, and love him even as he loveth you." "Holy Mary, help me!" she exclaimed. "What is this?" "Fair lady," he replied, "it is that you should wed a knight deserving one of your birth and beauty." "But your promise?" "It is performed. I revoke my word to Anigrote, for I am Amadis, but I claim the performance of yours. So give I you to him, and keep my faith with both." "Sir," quoth she to the king, "is this Amadis indeed?" "Without doubt." "All wretched," she cried, "it is vain for mortal man to avoid what God hath decreed. It was for no dislike nor misdeed that I refused Sir Anigrote. But now, being free, I would have preserved my single liberty, and now, when I thought myself safely separated, I am thus put in his power." "Then," said Lusart, "as God shall help me, fair lady, you have great reason to rejoice, for, as you are fair and of high degree, he is young and of great prowess, and as you are rich in possessions, so is he in all goodness. Great reason is there, then, that such a marriage, and so must all appear to all." Gromnessa turned to the queen. "You, my lady queen, whom God has made the best and wisest princess in the world, what do you say to me?" "That Anigrote deserves the love of any lady. Trust me," quoth Amadis. My promise to Anigrote was made neither by chance nor for any undue favor to him, but because, having to my danger proved his worth in arms, I felt myself bound to remedy as far as I could his extreme passion for you, and your little regard towards him. "I must yield," quoth Gromnessa, "and, after all that has been said, it were folly not to be well pleased." "Sir Anigrote," quoth Amadis, "here is your lady. I perform my word on condition that the marriage be performed without delay." The king commanded the Bishop of Salerno to go with them to his chapel, and give them the blessings of the church. Forthwith, Anigrote and his bride, with all their lineage, went to the city, and there was the marriage ceremony with all solemnity performed. And, we may say, that is all this has been so And we may say that all this has been so ordered to requite Enigrote for his great courtesy and forbearance towards this lady when he had her in his power.